Hello once again, and welcome back to my Character Crusade Unbound Season 2 Let's Play featuring Alusell, the Alteration Swordsman, who is good at swords and alteration, in case you didn't know from the opening. Anyway, how's everybody doing? I'm good, thanks for asking. Happy Friday. Um, well, it's not Friday if you're watching it on a different day than when I record, but it's Friday for me, and I'm happy about that. Um, I'm also happy to be recording Skyrim. I feel like I only tend to play these days when I can record, and I can't record all that often, so it's always happy. Always happy day for me to get back into Skyrim and do some recording. So, okay, before we go on here, let's make a recap here of what happened last time. So, last episode we made our way to Hroldan Inn, Old Hroldan Inn, and we stayed the night in Tiber Septim's room, which Alusell wasn't too impressed with, but it ended up being pretty significant to the story. Because during the night, Juker, and that's going to be hard for me. I keep wanting to say Guker, because I think the J is supposed to be like a Y sound in this Nordic language. But in the Ghosts of Yore podcast story segment, Joe pronounces it Juker, and I think the Character Crusade community has kind of adopted that. So I'm going to try to pronounce it Juker for consistency's sake. But I might slip up and say Guker every now and then. But anyway, we found Juker's ghost, and Juker was a figure that featured somewhat prominently in the first story that Haldir, or the story that Haldir told us in the first encounter at Haldir's Cairn over here. It was told from the perspective of somebody, of some warlord or someone, accompanied by his good friend Juker, rejoining a contingent of Nordic troops in the Hroldan area, which is where we are, or where we were at the inn. And they were getting ready for a great battle with the Reachmen, or the Forsworn, in this area here. Turns out, I guess, that Juker didn't make it, because Juker's ghost is here, and he's still waiting for Hjalti. So we're thinking that the story is told from the perspective of this Hjalti that he keeps mentioning. I don't think Alusell has put the pieces together that Hjalti is Tiber Septim. Though he may have read it in a book. If he did, he hasn't quite put that memory together with this ghost and this name yet. So from there we made our way all the way up here to the Deepwood Redoubt, up around the Hafingar area. I guess technically we're still in the Reach, but it's up toward Hafingar, right on the border actually. And I had to cut the episode because I was being a little chatty, I suppose, and the trip from Old Hroldan to Deepwood Redoubt actually took a while. So that's where we are. I wanted to cut the episode before because I know that this dungeon is long and it's kind of difficult. There's a lot of high-level enemies in here, especially toward the end of it. And I might die a lot, so I wanted to make this its own episode. So here we are. With that being said, please bear with me. Like I said, I'm not. I haven't been playing a lot of Skyrim lately, so I'm a little rusty, and I know that this area is a bit difficult and it's a bit large, so you might see some fun gameplay here, or you might see me die a whole lot, which might be equally as fun for you. If you're the sadistic type, which I don't blame you. I like watching people get upset when they die a whole bunch in a game as well. Lots of traps here already, huh? I feel like in a past life I probably would have died 3 times already. I see ya. Okay, I think... Yep, there's a third guy up there on the bridge. Oh, and there's another guy. Okay, these swinging traps. Let's see if I can get through these without getting diced. Oh, I got diced. And I continue to get diced. How come I'm still getting sliced? I must have been just close enough to that last blade to take it a second time. Well, that could have been a little more graceful, I suppose. Gotta heal up now. We still got that guy on the bridge to worry about. But for now, I think we're fairly safe. Let's go ahead and loot these dudes. Alusell loves loot because he can sell it for money. And he loves money because he can use it for katana crafting materials and training. And food, apparently. He's so hungry. We're gonna skip the raw food. Alusell isn't much of a cook. He'd rather spend money on the good stuff. We've got some runes here. Let's go ahead and cast a candlelight spell, and I'm going to equip a concentration spell, so I only have to spend one of my spells on clearing all 3 of these runes here. If I would have done a firebolt or something, that would have counted 3 spells against me in my Vancian magic count. Still got 26, we're doing good. I seem to remember a fairly important enemy right through here. Ooh, a tough one too. Nice shot, right? She comes storming in like a boss. Okay, we got the key for that door, which I believe leads to the bridge that last enemy was on in there. Okay, so in the process of clearing out this dungeon, I don't want it just to be a pure gameplay experience, since this is a roleplay playthrough. In this situation, I think Alusell would be asking himself, why did Hjalti want to send us to Roldan to begin with? Obviously, at this point, it was to meet with Juker, who is Hjalti's friend. And Juker was a prominent figure in Hjalti's first little story segment early on in the season. I guess one of the main reasons could be that Hjalti could sense the doubt within Alusell, doubt whether or not Hjalti was for real or if it was just a symptom of madness in Alusell. This gives Alusell proof that Hjalti's story is at least somewhat bound in reality, and that the things, and that Hjalti isn't just a figment of Alusell's imagination. He isn't just a delusion of madness, which is important, for sure. But Hjalti leading us to Juker, who then leads us to Deepwood Redoubt. Why here? So we're going to be looking for clues. And we're already over encumbered. Those orcish weapons really take up a lot of encumbrance. But luckily for us, Raya has a big old backpack that helps her carry these things, so that we don't have to. So we can loot all the things and carry on our merry way. So yeah, Alusell at this point will be looking for clues as to why he's here, why Hjalti sent him on this chained quest. The legend of Red Eagle is significant. We will talk about that in a minute, but let's go ahead and read this Forsworn missive. Alaric, do not presume we have grown fat and complacent here in the north. Our matriarch was wise to bring us here. Our camp is secure and our numbers grow. We will not skulk in the shadows with you, making petty plots with rabble and sycophants. When we strike, we will do it with cunning and power, and the occupiers will fall before us. That is the way of true reachmen. Alright. Book of Daedra, Legend of Red Eagle. Okay, so this little missive here tells us that there's a little bit of dissent among the separate clans of the Forsworn. This particular one that's centered here is holding out on small little guerrilla attacks like the one that we saw in Markarth in the market. Instead, these guys seem to be hiding away from the powers that be in order to grow their numbers and then attack more strongly and decisively when the time presents itself, when the moment comes. Which I think is pretty wise. In fact, I think if all the Reachmen, if all the Forsworn kind of followed that, they would have quite a formidable army and probably could do some damage. But as it stands, they're pretty fractured, which is indicative of an ancient kind of cult or sect that has been out of power for a long time. And I'll talk about Red Eagle in a second here. I think I got a battle coming up.
Someone there.
Took an arrow. I thought maybe I could dodge by it. Okay, ended up inside of a wall there. But we got through it fairly smoothly. Yeah, so Red Eagle. In the Legend of Red Eagle there, which is now of more interest to Alusell than it was before because it involves the Forsworn. We'll be taking that. We'll read that later. The Arcturian Heresy. This is a really important book as well. I'll talk about that a little later. But yeah, we're definitely taking that one. But regarding Red Eagle, he's a little bit more of interest to Alusell at this point because he involves the Forsworn. But if you read up on the lore of the Red Eagle, it turns out he's the original Briarheart. He's the very first one that ended up accepting the power from the Hagravens in order to kind of save his people. He became a martyr because of it. Ended up being a pretty powerful entity and a pretty strong entity in Forsworn history. And we talked in a previous episode about the Briarhearts being a pretty strong counterpoint to Alusell's whole philosophy on strength and progress. Alusell likes to do everything on his own merit. He likes to be pure with his power. He likes to grow his power from within and manifest it naturally through focus and through training and through sort of the pursuit of perfection of mind, body, and And spirit, I suppose. Spirit's not a big thing for Alusell, but mostly of mind and body. The Briarhearts, on the other hand, are formidable enemies, but they have accepted their power. They do exceptional things through external power, granted through the Briarheart transformation, granted to them through their Hagraven Matriarch. And so Alusell's kind of putting the pieces together on this whole Forsworn culture and this Forsworn society here. So it seems like the Forsworn tend to worship the Hagravens, and each sort of clan of Forsworn has a Hagraven Matriarch that leads them in some way. And it seems like the most worthy of those Forsworn end up being turned into Briarhearts by the Hagravens. Now, I think there are some examples in some of these Forsworn camps later on where it looks like the Forsworn are experimenting, or either have figured out the process of turning themselves into Briarhearts, or experimenting on how to do it. But that's something that they're looking at, which kind of well, I'll save that for later because I don't think Alusell has actually encountered that yet. But the Hagravens also seem to have their own little inner circle or coven, so to speak, of female mages or witches that they surround themselves with, called hags. And kind of as a parallel with the Briarhearts, the most worthy of the hags are chosen to become Hagravens, which I don't think Alusell has touched on it a lot at all, but it's good for us to know going forward. If Alusell is taking on these Forsworn and Briarhearts as enemies, it might become a significant story point later on. But I don't know. We'll keep that in the back of our heads, along with the Forsworn turning themselves into Briarhearts without the help of the Hagravens. So yeah, we touched on Red Eagle, or the Arcturian Heresy. That is about that book that I picked up that I said was going to be an important part of our story. That mentions the alternate history of Tiber Septim that I mentioned in an earlier episode. I think maybe even the last episode. That said that Tiber Septim was actually taking help from an entity called the Underking that granted him some unnatural abilities and kind of enabled him to win some very key battles in his conquest of first of Skyrim before he became Tiber Septim, and then afterwards the conquest of Tamriel. So I read through that, and I think it fits. I'll have to change some of the names and everything. And kind of take some creative liberties with some stuff, but I think it actually really fits really well with how I wanted King Olaf to fit in this. That Underking, I think that role fits really well with King Olaf himself, especially in respect to the story that I'm telling here. So I'm excited. I'm excited to kind of to play that out. And to figure out how I'm going to fit that into Joe's Ghosts of Yore story from the Character Crusade folks. Alright, so enough talking, let's move on. We got a lot of work to do here. Hopefully I get an autosave here because I think there's a really tough part coming up. There is an autosave. And this looks like a brand new external area, which is why we couldn't get to this from the outside. Indicated by Dyne-to-Load being initiated.
Don't see that every day.
No, you don't. Pretty area, but... Alright, we got danger. I don't know where that's coming from exactly, but let's try not to go in through the front gates where they're going to be expecting us. Try to go around the side here. Pick our battles a little more selectively. That distorted shape is only supposed to last for 10 seconds, but that felt like longer than 10 seconds there. I was expecting getting a block or a bash there, but we were ethereal right up until the point where we actually hit him. Okay. Alright, Raya's already taken the fight to him, so... Oh, I missed. Bash her out of her spells here. We're not going to get to distorted shape unless we... Oh, Raya's just standing there. What's going on? Maybe we can funnel him through here. Alright, a-holes. Try to find some distance. Running low on stamina, we gotta level up. That's nice. Keep that in mind for later. Raya's still a little confused there, I think. I don't know how that got through our block, but it did. Luckily, Stoneflesh seems to be holding up adequately, at least. It's keeping us alive. Oh gosh. Alright, we gotta get out of here. I got no stamina. Oh no, I'm gonna die. I know it. Ah! Alright. That should buy us a little time to heal up here. Let's, Yeah, some of these Forsworn, I guess it's the looters, some of them tend to be a lot stronger than others. Yeah, I used up all my, well, not all of them, but a lot of the potions in the last episode, or the one before that. I think I was just rusty gameplay-wise. Ended up taking a lot of hits that I normally wouldn't have. Managed to get a good dodge in there. Okay, more progress toward Red Sand Dance, which is actually probably one of my favorite racial-specific abilities added by the Imperius racial overhaul by an Sion. Great mod. Highly recommend it. It's one of those great overhaul mods that breathe new life into kind of a tired game, I suppose. Okay, Raya, I got a bunch of loot for you to hold on to for me here. Yeah, that was funny. Raya seemed a little confused there. It looked like her combat AI hadn't kicked in for a while, and she was just standing there while a lot of those Forsworn were making their way toward me. Not that Alusell minds. He likes doing things on his own. But from a gameplay perspective, he kind of needs the help being an unarmed melee fighter. Wow, this encampment's pretty impressive. It looks like a Forsworn encampment built on top of an old ancient Nord ruin, which kind of indicates another big Forsworn battle that didn't quite go the Nord's way. Unless, of course, this encampment is more of a recent development, which that last missive that we read kind of indicates. Okay, something tells me that we got more baddies to contend with here. So let's contend with them. I think there's another one in here somewhere. There he is. Foragers seemed strong too. They didn't go down right away with my sprinting power attack there. That is augmented by a perk which makes that attack very powerful. Speaking of perks, we did just get that level up. I'm really seriously considering... Ooh. We still do have some leeway on sneak. Not that we ever use it, but do like the skill increases up to the point where I've capped it. Yeah, for that new level up, I'm really considering taking the Dungeon Master perk, which is off of the Vancian Magic tree, which allows us, every time we rest in an owned bed or an inn bed, it allows us to choose whether or not to take more spells at lesser effectiveness, or less spells at a better effectiveness. Recently, spell count hasn't been an issue, and this is kind of a long dungeon dive here, and if this ends up being okay spell count wise, I might just take that and kind of resign myself to taking the more powerful spell choice for less spell count, and see how that works. That's one of my favorite perks in all of Ordinator, just because it adds a constant choice. It makes the choice of whether to use a spell or not extremely important. Oh, I probably shouldn't have looted that troll. That's something Alusell would not do. Icky. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to that. As it is, I'm not using a whole lot of spells other than Candlelight and like Flames for setting off runes. But in the future, I would like to use more of them, become a little more magey. Magic is going to become much more important when we start facing off against dragons. Which, while I've been avoiding that whole thing recently, it's going to become. I think this story is taking us in a direction where they are going to become something that we're encountering, something that we have to fight against, and probably something that we even target in some way. Okay, we got a Briar Heart. Ooh, quick reflexes. Okay, that went a little better than it could have, I suppose. Yeah, I just feel like the story is going in a direction where dragons are going to become significant.
Yes, my thing. You need something?
Olaf was... Oh, here's the target of this whole expedition here. Hjalti's sword. You know, this is kind of funny because this is Tiber Septim's sword for one of his defining battles as a young Nord general, and it's only worth 13 gold. This is a majorly important artifact in Skyrim lore overall, and it's a piece of trash apparently, according to the game. That's something Alusell would probably be very interested in keeping for study if we don't have to give it up. Something tells me we're going to have to give it up to Juker later on. Let's see, Frontier and Conquest. We're going to take it and read it later. It might... Oh, Social History of Cyrodiil? No thanks. Just in case that had to do with the Forsworn history or anything, he was going to take it, but looking at the subtitle there, it's not worth it. Not interested in Cyrodiil. Matriarch, we await your orders. Our blades are honed, our quivers full, our wills steeled for battle. The time of our waiting is ended. The time for battle is at hand. You have but to speak the word, and the occupiers shall fall like wheat before the reaper. So it looks like the Briarheart, in this case anyway, is acting as kind of a conduit between the Forsworn sort of peons, or the pawns, and the Hagraven Matriarch of this place. Which is an interesting role for them. A lot of times you do see Briarhearts without the presence of a Hagraven. But I wonder how often they actually commune with their Hagraven Matriarchs. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and throw down a quick save here because I know there's more to come. Alusell has what he came here for. But now we're getting into more Ancient Nord ruins, and anything that has to do with Ancient Nord ruins or Forsworn is actually of great interest to Alusell. But now that we have Forsworn and Ancient Nord ruins, he's not going to be able to help but see what this place has to offer him in terms of information and history and, frankly, loot. Anything valuable in here is going to be valuable to him because it affords him opportunities to train. And I'm sorry again, but it looks like this is going to go over 30 minutes because I don't want to cut this episode again, even though... You know what? Maybe I should actually go ahead and cut this episode. It could conceivably take me another 30 minutes to get through the rest of this. So I think I'll go ahead and cut the episode here. I hope that you were entertained by the action in this episode. And I hope I was able to convey a little bit of Alusell's story going forward. I'm actually excited to see how this pans out. I think the framework is there for something really cool. Yeah, so I think we'll go ahead and cut it here. The next episode, we will, if memory serves correctly, we're going to be getting burned and frozen by a bunch of hags and hagravens. So yeah, take care, and I will see you next time.